All right, we are back here with the next video. Now we're going to talk about reasons for conformity. The first is normative social influence. Is influence resulting from a person's desire to gain approval or avoid rejection. A perfect example of this would be most of us, by far, this is a very rare occurrence when this happens, but most of us would not come to school naked. Just acting like everything's normal, because we know there would be severe repercussions for that. There would be all kinds of mocking. Then you would be the legal issues, definitely the school issues. There's lots of things in place to make sure that people wear clothes all throughout society, because that's what our society deems as appropriate. That's not the case in every society. Of course, you can probably come up with lots of examples of places where people are much more open about their bodies and their nakedness. So that's just one example for here. Now, informative social influence. The group may provide valuable information. Very much the big concern here is when we're looking to be right. We want to be right, and we're concerned that perhaps other people have more information than we do, or there's a phenomenon known as other people around us are right kind of phenomenon. We're always convinced we're wrong, they're right. So an example of this would be something like you drive by several restaurants, you're hungry, you notice one restaurant is empty and another restaurant is just packed. And that would be, and you decide to go to the packed restaurant because you say, well, why is one empty and one is packed? You're assuming there's other people know more than you do about where to eat, and the restaurant that has lots of people is better than the restaurant that has few people in it. And so you are using sort of the masses to figure out where to eat, and you want to be right. You don't want to eat a bad meal. Okay, moving on. All right, Barron and colleagues in 1996 basically updated Ash's study from previous years and sort of made it a little more complicated, and I'll explain it here. And if you don't get it, please feel free to ask in class. So what they did is they showed people first the slide one of a man, and they were supposed to try to sort of get that guy's look in their head. Then they were going to be shown slide two, a series of men in a lineup, and this had something to do with some kind of police work type thing. And they were either given an easy task or a hard task. The easy task would be to pick the guy out of the lineup in anywhere from a half a second to a second. The easy task would be they get 5 seconds to look at the picture to pull out the guy. So you can see a half a second to 5 seconds is a big difference when you're trying to identify people. Then they also made it either of some value or very non-important. Sometimes the participants were told this is just a preliminary thing, we're just doing some light testing to figure some things out. Or they were told this is important for picking out people in a lineup, and that also there's a $20 reward or prize for people who got closest to the most accurate. So of course there's some weight put to it. What they found was when you had Confederates put into the study like Ash did, where they would purposefully pick the wrong person in a group that was trying to identify the man, they of course didn't do very well. People were more likely to go with the Confederate when they were given a short period of time, and then they were less likely to go with the Confederate when they were given longer to look at the picture. And they also found that people, when given a very short period of time, were very much more likely to go with the Confederate, or when it wasn't very important, they were much more likely to go with the Confederate because they figured it didn't matter, why not go with the Confederate? If they're right, great. If they're wrong, who cares? Well, when all of a sudden it mattered, so you're going to get $20 for whether you're right or wrong, they were less likely to go along with the Confederate because now the task has some value. So it's just solidifying that human nature, we do pick out important or non-important tasks and make a difference. Okay. All right, here we go. This is just a slide explaining basically what I just said, and as to giving you a graphic as to whether people went along with the Confederates in the study or not. All right, obedience. If you've watched the Stanford Prison Experiment video, you would know who Milgram is because they did a little piece on him in the video. Stanley Milgram was about 10 years before the Stanford Prison Experiment with Zimbardo. He had people, basically, he was curious. To make a long story short, there was all of this outrage over what the Nazis did during World War II, rightfully so. But Milgram had this idea of, he was curious, are the Germans somehow genetically different than the rest of the planet, or to do these horrible things to the Jews? Or is this human nature? Are there things that were done that any of us could sort of get bamboozled into or convinced to do? And so he set this study up to investigate obedience. And let me show you the next slide. Here what he did is he was curious if, given an authority figure, here a man in a white coat, and you were told to basically give words to a Confederate behind a screen that you didn't see, and every time the Confederate, you didn't know this, got the wrong answer, you were to administer an electrical shock, which you can see there, the big board in the middle of the slide. And each time each time someone missed an answer, they were going to get a more and more progressively heavy shock. And there are actually buttons to push on there that actually said people would die, their death. And what they found was, when given an authority figure that says it's okay to do it and that they would take responsibility for any kind of negative action that occurred, people were willing to do quite horrible things. 2/3 of the participants in Milgram's study went all the way to death. In their minds, they were thinking death. They just killed someone. Nobody was injured in the whole thing. The Confederate was never even receiving a shock. They were just playing their part. So interesting. It showed that, you know what, the Germans aren't so different than the rest of us. We all could be put in that situation. So it enlightened us as to, of course, how incredibly effective the Nazi psychology program, the philosophies they came up with to get their people to do these things. It was kind of an amazing feat because they got an entire country to move in a direction. But we're all human, and we would all, basically be susceptible to those type of things. And here's a graph just showing the percentage of subjects who obeyed the experimenter based on the severity of the shock. And that is where we will end this video for today.